So like specifically my personal impression that like the current situation with like the bunch of bounds like popping up and basically right now with like Ichigo fighting the bound and Rukia going up all this need only a part of like Urahara's plan to get Ichigo from around certainly my prepared. Right now Ichigo even fighting like the bound and Rukia going up is the all part of like it's the training given stealthy training given to Ichigo by Urahara is definitely my prepared. So definitely my prepared that like precisely once like in like the whole society once like Asians had stolen like the whole issue and escaped to and left to like the world of followers. At that point, that like you already minded on a phone and informed Korahara about like the updated situation about like Asian taking like the whole issue and leaving to like society. Straight away, like Korahara made a started off on the like creation of like these three modes of like Karudo Nova and as well as like Urahara might have created like advanced mode kind of like a different unique kind of like a mode so advanced kind of like a mode so that might like not be like be able to like even like even like the physical pressure won't be that of like exactly that of like a mode so uh like and those will be like the bound that like your right now slated to be bound to step in with the so like maybe Urahara might have been able to like be enabled so like that's definitely the impression so like even like the current bounce like multiple bounce that basically Chad and or Shira Chad and Orihime I mean like Chad and Orihime had seen as well as like right now like the bounce that it was right now fighting off against like won't be actual bounce but it would be like advanced mode kind of thing that is really Urahara might have created to like spot the trick chat but in as well as Ichigo to there will be one more there will be even more bounty and that will be like I'm assuming there to be like three bounce in total that like Urahara might have not bounce but like fake bounce that like Urahara might have only created for like the training of like Ichigo Chad and in the training up of the training like Urahara might have planned to like train them together using like one other fake bounce which like would be like the purpose based on that chart and for him just now have seen and like there will be one more another third bound as well that would be internet for like instead of training as well. It's definitely member premise and right now with like Rukia showing up that too would be totally part of like Urahara's plan and because like the intent would be to like basically to have Rukia get into trouble in front of like Ichigo by what Ichigo would be totally like about so that like that would like only push Ichigo to like basically bring out the flag to be able to like bring out the like bandit or even electrical like it's definitely one of the ranges. And there's like current training that like Urahara would be totally giving to like skeletal training that or which would be like Urahara. What Urahara would be right now giving to like Chad of the and Ichigo and maybe eventually planning on giving to Ishida as well. This training in like the human world would be that and since like currently the training is in like the actual human world and not even in like the dimension kind of place of that secret training place of like Urahara, which like was like the case in like the past like the precise reason would to that like Urahara right now like training Ichigo and crew in like the actual human world would be precisely because like my work realizes that like the world of horror would be having like a lot of similarity to like the human world when it comes to like bringing out and using their power back powers as well as like fighting in like the human world and the point like would be having like even though like the world of horror will be like in appearance will be only different to what like the world of like the living looks like different still like while bringing out and using powers like while fighting like like bring out the spiritual pressure and fighting like literally like the combat like ambition like the world of fighting in like the human world would be like have like a lot of similarities to like how power can be used like fight fought from against in like the world of all as well. It's definitely not the perimeter. Whereas like members of it maybe in like the society like bringing out bank paper would be a lot easier when compared to like bringing out bank papers in like the human world. Like O'Hara might have talked informed like Rukia about like the whole issue, how important it is to like get back like the whole issue. And like Rukia might have totally agreed to like Urahara and Urahara might have thought Rukia's help to like basically to help with like those training so that like Ichigo can be pushed into like basically being able to like add its job being able to access to like bank power in right now. Certainly members of so like part of like Urahara's plan right now that like Rukia has right now showed up in front of Ichigo. Definitely my brother. So like definitely I'm still thinking about my brother that like right now itself I'm just like was like Ichigo fighting like the mountain, Ichigo still not being able to like Ichigo fighting against like what Ichigo believes is like the mountain basically. So like right now, even right now, like Ichigo kind of like getting overpowered by like what he believes is like the mountain basically. Just still now not being able to like bring out his plan also right now. Like scenario that I'm also bringing is that like fake bounce would be like right now attacking Rukia and like, in front of Ichigo, so like that pushing Ichigo to basically be that pushing Ichigo to like bring out for Ichigo to be able to like bring out this like mega powers and using that mega powers like Ichigo defeating that fake bound of like the scenario that I'm looking at. Yeah, them was only for that fake mount to like definitely not high at all. Because new also my point remember like Urahara might have ensured that like such a scenario as well doesn't happen. It's definitely also my point remember because like Urahara might have been someone who might have been back when like the order to like basically to wipe out and exterminate all more force that like society that themselves had created. Like I was wondering even back then it might have been like back when like Urahara was in like the head of like, the research team, it might have been definitely Urahara that might have created all those most of back then. And then before society. So like at that point like when like Urahara was doing like it was like the all right either by like the center of politics or like make into they to like execute or more so like at that point definitely I was when like Urahara might have been definitely an empathetic act who might have been against like the wipe out of like the against like wiping out all the monsters that they were doing. But like actually even while and that was very also specifically with like the three monsters like Karudo, as well as Endurance, precisely and constantly having like their whole bound detection system installed onto them like by Urahara. We also precisely in order to like that absolute intent to like eventually for the patient to like end up in such a manner so that like once again like or have the like still training to go chat or CMAX as well as like you should only usually prepare them to like really enter into like the waterfall to like eventually fight Asen and basically Asen and his team and basically bring them down and that way get back the whole juice. Definitely my first impression and yet like my first impression that like the actual true bound line an actual true bound will be whole lot extremely stronger than like the current fake bound that is going through the fighting is definitely my favorite. Like the actual true bound would be like definitely true bounds would definitely exist and for like that such ratio of like a bound that is that Urahara has basically revealed just now recently that basically he has found outside of his research lab back in like society back when like Urahara was like the head of like, the research department. That ratio of like the bound that Urahara claims to have found might have definitely be I mean might have definitely not at all been a lie and might have definitely been an incident that might have happened and that might have definitely been like the actual ratio of like an actual bound and an actual bound would be a whole lot stronger and a whole lot extremely dangerous than like the current fake bound that like which were through the fighting definitely my damage and as for back then like the ratio of like the bound even being found outside of like the reference lab like the precise reason would be like Mayuri is definitely my pyramid. Just like back when like Hara was like the head of like, the research department in like because they have definitely working Mayuri might have definitely been like Urahara definitely remember the so like without so like when Urahara might have not been present when Urahara's work would be over in his like for the day in like the research lab like I was doing Mayuri would be like in like the night during night time like Mayuri might like stealthily enter into like Urahara's lab and might have only experimented with like found exactly remember and I was doing like Mayuri back when like maybe it might have been like during some mission to like the human world that like or like back in like the past like Mayuri might have went to like the human world to like basically to like as part of like some in one of his like experiments maybe as part of some of his like experiment like Mayuri might have traveled to like the human world in like the past. At that point like accidentally Mayuri might have only ran into about might have been what might have happened if the never would run. So like my back then might have either tricked the bound, maybe that bound might have been a young person. So like maybe Mayuri might have either tricked the bound or like Mayuri might have somehow managed to like capture that bound and like Mayuri might have stealthily brought that bound to like the and abducted that bound and might have brought that bound into like the South Society and like he might have performed experiment on that bound without without like Urahara finding out about it down. It's definitely my preference, and that might not actually be for like Mayuri to attain like possibly maybe to like attain like the on top of like Ambus bring like bound to be totally having like unrevealed unique powers like on top of like gaining that those powers. Ambus to bring like even way more than that like my priority might have been like seeing a bound like capturing bound like Mayuri might have been so extremely excited because like Mayuri might have wanted to like attain that unique power that like solely unique or like Ambus bring like maybe other variations of humans or like even there might be even solos as well that might have like the also I'm considering maybe for like the instance of there being like a variation among solos where like some solos might have like the very same exact powers of like bounce where like they could by by taking like a human soul like basically like them being able to like live forever as like immortals basically that power might even exist for like maybe like another variation among followers as well. It's also like a possibility or something. So like definitely as for right now since it's now already revealed that basically bounce have and that definitely won't be a lie. Like bounce like the actual true bounce would be definitely having power to like basically take human souls and be able to live forever as like one that never will break. So like this power of like the bounce like I was doing back then Mayuri might have been after like updating about a real bound like Mayuri might have been trying to for him might have attempted for him to like attain this like that specific power of like the bound. It's definitely my observation. So like I would maybe of like the possibility that Mayuri already even having attained through his experiments having stolen that power of like that bound and maybe that even to the percentage since then maybe like Mayuri might have succeeded in his experiment and Mayuri possibly having like Jeffrey attain like the powers to basically take humans souls and live forever as like immortals. Like maybe in like the percentage Mayuri might actually have that power of that bound just like about which like absolutely no one would be aware of. It's also not even Ace and it's definitely one with Remington. And still think of with Remington that like Mayuri that like Ace would be like stealthily would be like a team. It's definitely my preference. So, like in short, like my three impressions for the possibility of like Mayuri actually being like in a way like kind of like an immortal and having stayed an immortal from a long time that maybe since like around like the time since like Urahara had found Urahara was like the head of the research department and found like the rate of like about outside of like Urahara's like research lab like maybe around that time since then like itself like without much great delay since then like I was offering maybe like Mayuri having more to say again like the kind of like a power of like immortality with like the power to basically take human souls and basically live forever. Mayuri having such a kind of like an immortal, Mayuri being such kind of like an immortal, like the possibility that I'm going to bring in to remember. Also, the name I'm the impression right now with Rukia right now showing up like it should then definitely according to like the selfie training of physical plan of like for Hara. Definitely remember the reverse that I'm putting on to, but like still to like Rukia right now showing up like I'm considering like definitely uh for like Urahara to also give like stealthily may also to like stealthily give probably give training to that Rukia as well. Possibly Rukia as well may be getting tricked by Urahara as well into into engineering and get start ending up with into kind of like a training like a self training kind of like a situation as well. Definitely there is a scenario that I'm observing and eventually once like you can go eventually heading off to like the world of follow like at that point I'm definitely preferring like a Rukia as well that only would be along with that to bring down Ace and it's definitely my personal reaction. Okay, so the name of the encryption right now is like a bunch of snakes out of the right now, like basically stopping like the theory monster, like yes, they of like definitely it will be a fake bound that so like as like who exactly might have sent that bunch of snakes and stop try to stop like yes, definitely I'm considering it would be the doing of someone who would be like totally unaware of of like the current situation, current fight of Ichigo would be that Urahara self-training for Ichigo. Like my person theory of Richard, though like I was thinking like it would be most likely a Renji, definitely my person. Renji might have right now showed up to that situation. And it would be especially since like Renji's blanket power had like kind of like a similarity to like a snake, like blanket form power, like that animal like thing basically had like the monsters like thing had like a kind of like a similarity to like a snake. I'm considering maybe it would be like Ranger right now that might have sent like a bunch of snakes to stop to try to like stop that theory monster gateway of like the fake bounders definitely might have been. So like right now I would mention that like maybe for like two positive, like maybe for like another pound right now, fake pound right now going up. Maybe because of like or Harris like highest priority in the current training would be that of like to really train to ensure that Ichigo is able to like get to his like maximum plus even though chat for him as well as Ichigo's training as well and then ground from as well would be extremely important and essential for like Rahara like I'm predicting still like even more like a bit of priority would be going for it because because like uh it will be obvious for like or how that like Ichigo like the strong and so that Ichigo would be like seen as like Urara as like his best bet for that single person who would be like eventually be able to like go head to head against someone like of like the levels of games and respect levels and like I was thinking maybe like Urahara might have assigned stealthily assigned like one more like bound created and assigned one more bound like stealthily watch like Ichigo's fight against like current fight against like the Fury monster and that fake bound. So that like even if like anything goes wrong, like for him to like infiltrate into like that battle and basically to ensure that like Ichigo is like put into a tough spot so that like that extreme pressure would be like the only thing that like Wakara would only believe that like would be enabling Ichigo to like be able to like bring out just like bank power to like his human world. Remember so like I'm looking such a scenario is like one possible that I'm so like that way right now, those are like the most likely ranges that might have sent out like the bunch of snake to like stop that theory, gear or some that theory monster gear of like that fake bound. So like there's a range showing up. I'm considering like that like another bound showing up right now, so, and basically that bound is the same strong, and that bound like simultaneously attacking Renji and Renji as well as like Rukia, while Ichigo won't be able to like save them, especially because well, like at that point, like while Ichigo will be trying to save them, like the other bound, like the female, the fake bound will be at that point still like attacking Ichigo, and ensuring that Ichigo is not able to like save them. So like basically that way to totally put Ichigo in the spot and it's to like suppressor. It's like one possible scenario that I'm considering. Like the other possible scenario right now, I'm considering like is that like a consumer considering for example, there's only something like the person who would have spent like snake to like stop like the theory of monster would be most likely a India considering maybe like the other scenario that I'm considering is for like that fake bound moment that moment right now that's sending creating like another gear like so that way like two theory gears like showing up that way like not showing up like already like the already existing like theory gear like one more theory gear being straight away created by that breakdown moment and we that way that the second theory gear straight away attacking that Rengi as well as like Rukia. So that's the other possible scenarios that I'm considering right now and I'm considering. So like that new my consideration right now like another found like Rio showing up like the different mention that like it should be like totally a fake bound created by Onara. So like I'm also different like right now for that fake bound like Rio to like basically stop like the theory monster of like the initial bound like I'm also thing it will be precisely maybe due to like the whole fake act planned by them. So like I was wondering like what him to like send out the snakes and they will stop at the theory of maybe it might be due to like as part of it the fake act strategy like thing would be right now so fighting on Ichigo. Like Rio, like the fake bound Rio right now would be fighting off against like Ichigo's like the scenario that I'm referring and I was wondering like most likely him telling the initial fake bound that woman to like basically take care of like Rukia. It's like the scenario that I'm working right now. That way, like Rio fighting off against Ichigo, the fake bound Rio fighting off against Ichigo while simultaneously the other bound would be like that fake round woman would be that fighting off against like Rukia, simultaneously like the scenario that I'm looking right now. Also, definitely remember very interesting right now as like Orkina right now has letter Rukia and Rukia that basically she never thought she would be able to like see Rukia so like Rukia right then is being disturbed initially and then like smiling. And but that minor disturbance within Rukia was different like precisely because of like not even Rukia might have only felt that like she would be seeing like it's going through so soon. And then we need to be precisely that Orahara intervention, like Orahara calling Rukia might have been like the solution for like Rukia right now itself, like so physically showing up to like the human world right now, exactly right now. It's definitely with Ranger. So like there will be that minor guilt within Rukia, even while Orahime is like so glad to like see Rukia back so sweet like the fact that like Rukia would be like right now totally putting on an absolute fake act in front of like Ichigo and Pro to even though it would be like but for it should be definitely for like a good cause and for like the greater good for like that way to like save the soul society of like the human world from being destroyed by the hands of like Asian to like stop Asian and that way get back the whole game to my repression still even though it would be for like the good cause and considering like since like the fact that like Rukia right now would be that most likely right now would be like a fake acting, like totally fake acting and totally disrespecting Ichigo and his like Ichigo and Orihime and Chad and everyone like basically that considering like to be like the reason for like that slight disturbance within like Rukia is definitely one of the benefits because like since like Rukia is like such an extremely empathetic character like considering that Rukia would be feeling that minor guilt within her because like from Rukia's point of view Rukia would be totally thinking that like even after like it's going through had basically she got that or him like basically even after all of them had basically risked their life like put their life on the line to like save Rukia from being executed, like basically even after that, even after all that help that they had done for like Rukia. So right now, since like Rukia will be most likely putting on the fake act and tricking those very same people, like that will be like the reason for like that minor kill kind of like a certain level of guilt within that and disturbance within like Rukia right now, especially when it's this is the reason for like Rukia right now, as like Orihime tells right now tells Rukia that like she never expected Rukia to like have to be able to like see Rukia so thing like for Rukia to be straight away feel disturbed initially. Would be precisely because of reason especially my question right now. Also, the label with the impression right now with like Okina right now talking about like Rukia's trust, like how good it looks and like her accent even saying like it should have love. But something like that will be solely due to like most likely solely due to like Okina. Even to the person maybe like probably assuming that Ishida totally has like a crush on Rukia. Definitely one would remember. So like Okina even possibly was the thing maybe like Okina even to the person would be actually saying that basically she has a chance with like she actually have a chance with like Ichigo. It's definitely not the impression. So like definitely I'm considering like eventually for like Okina to have like a huge heartbreak and like a major heartbreak. It's definitely one would remember when probably she would be like eventually in like the maybe like the distant future like them that Okina would be totally finding out that basically Ichigo and Haruka have that like same feeling towards like each other. Like at that point I was like for him and totally like having that absolute shocking heartbreak and was like at that point definitely for him I would be like seriously heartbroken and down so like and extremely sad like but like I'm like or him not showing that some extremely disappointed and disturbed and sad side towards like or him ensuring to like not show that side of her and the fact that like she loved Michigo, like basically it's definitely one of the privilege, like her initially like that's the when that happens, I'm the totally but that happens. So like when that happens, like I was like Orochime ensuring she like non flash not to show that extremely vulnerable side of Orochime to neither Ichigo nor Rukia. It's like the scenario that I'm different. But like the flavor thing Ishida totally like often I won't be able to like hide it from Ishida, like the scenario that I'm different. Like Ishida, it will be like far too obvious for Ishida at that point. I was going through like Okime, like what like the situation is like Okime, but like I'm different like that would be like the point when I'm like the temperature when I'm most likely or like putting like would be when like Ishida would be finally at that point building up his courage because like to basically express how he feels about like Okime It's like something is like my feelings towards like fucking me. That to bring like this definitely should have been having that to bring like to only happen at that point in like the business user. It's like the scenario that I'm to bring, and at that point I'm to bring like argument probably like accepting that instead of love towards like working at that point like the scenario that I'm to bring in like the different reason that I'm to bring I'm to bring. And definitely at that point, I'm definitely not interpreting definitely for like for he made her be totally shocked that like the entire first time he should have had that absolute affectionate feelings towards that something like that like it should have loved for him so much this entire time, which would be definitely the case with the name of the brain so like until like and I'm not the or him I could only find that out only in like the future and at that point like okay maybe totally and absolutely shocked. It's like there was a scenario that I'm not looking yet like organization I would be totally accepting of that instead of love towards that. That's definitely also my good reaction and thank you definitely I'm just very person right now with like Osima right now happily and acceptably he's talking to like Rukia while Ichigo with like not with smiling on face like basically looking at like Rukia sharply looking at Rukia who was also not like smiling at that moment. Definitely this would be really because of like Ichigo by now would like be knowing like Rukia far so well that like right now seeing like yeah not smiling and being unusual self might be one thing that Ichigo might not only felt like even while for him I might have been totally oblivious definitely would be totally oblivious to that and like separately talking to like or him secondary talking to like okay still Ichigo might not have made totally noticed that especially with him this would be that's a reason for like kind of like the serious face from Ichigo's side while Ichigo initially right now is like looking towards like looking at yes definitely with frame so definitely with the repercussions that like right now already to go be like when I'm fully aware that the report like Rukia right now showing up like definitely something is wrong like basically the like that like that's like you're but only already right now feeling that like there will be something that will be totally troubling Rukia and basically like that would be like the reason for like Rukia totally acting indifferently would be along the lines like Rukia Ichigo might have totally already felt supplementary, even though Rukia already quickly adapted and basically is like smiling at like of him right now. Still, I was like Ichigo might not totally notice that it's supplementary. So like I'm wondering that without much still I not like emotion like Ichigo while chat and Horkime won't be decide like Rukia. At that point, I'm definitely something like it's what only confronting Rukia about like Rukia's like Mr. Uh, feeling, and I'm definitely like it's got only asking Rukia as to like what's wrong, what's like troubling Rukia. And I was wondering like, at that point definitely even though what would be I'm still thinking of my mention that what would be troubling Rukia would be most likely Rukia having to put on like the fake, the guilt of like Rukia having to put on the fake act in front of each other and others solely due to like Urahara wanting to kill Ichigo to get give Ichigo and others like that specifying and get them stronger. So it's definitely what I was trying to say. Yeah, so like I was trying like because like Urahara might have told Rukia that basically no matter how much like Ichigo or like no matter what happens, like never it's going through should never find out about like the self training might be one thing that like obviously or Hara might have already told Rukia. It's definitely not going to like definitely Rukia hating that secret just like the scenario and putting on like a fake act in front of Ichigo, which would be like only far too obvious for Ichigo at that point is like the scenario that I'm going to bring until like eventually like Ichigo only through with like eventual fight against like a rebattle against like the bounce where like I was making to go be like finally actually defeating like the bounce like by then like I'm was like one to go be defeating the bounce maybe I'm was like Ichigo once again possibly having like figured what's really going on and that like the fight against like and that like these bounce are like fake bounce and like basically this fight itself is like basically or harass Chelsea training and Ruchi as well is part of that training, Chelsea training given to Ichigo by Torahara. Like basically Ichigo himself like figuring all that out without like Rukia revealing that to like Ichigo's like the initial scenario that I'm about to bring about the training. And it's like the film members reaction right now as for like Rukia right now telling Ichigo and Pro that basically he was suddenly ordered to like essentially show up to like this exact very location where Ichigo and Pro lives to like get rid of all the hollow here. Like I'm thinking that would definitely be that absolute excuse of a life that like Rukia would be right now telling Ichigo Crew to like hide that absolute truth that basically the core reason she Rukia would be here right now is here right now would be solely to like basically give Ichigo and Crew that like stealthy training which will be especially according to like the orders of Urahara to basically trick Ichigo and Crew and give them that stealthy training that would be like totally pushing Ichigo and Crew into like extreme like emotional situations and extreme pressure. It's definitely my preference. This would be that Crew that basically right now yeah, we're trying to like hide from Ichigo and Crew by and that it will be the life that yeah, we are right now telling to like Ichigo and Crew to hide that truth, especially when we're very much. Okay, so like the name and Rosemary I'm concerned right now is definitely that like Jin Muragawa as well as like Yoshino would be actually actual fruit from just definitely as of the example for right now. And I'm also bring like Jin and Yoshino would be like husband and wife like and I'm also bring that uh, and there's a point like, but they might not be officially married either. Like they might not have like a wedding ceremony or anything. Depending on precisely because of all this talk about like darkness. So like I'm hoping like bounce might have like these three bounce might have like totally live in like the shadows, like in like the darkness. That would be the precise reason for like Jin talking about like them not being able to that like they would never be able to like become price like that will be precisely because of like Michael realization that that will be only Jin talking about stealth that basically the like as bound they could always as bound that basically lives on by taking human souls like they should always ensure to live in like the shadows in like the darkness uh but that absolute stealth would be what like Jenny would be right now trying to teach or like tell Yoshino is definitely one of those but like and definitely like these bounds might have been definitely living for a long time like since like they have like the power to the power of like immortality and also like by like taking human souls like they might have been living for such a long time. Especially when the mentions that like since like they would have been living for such a long time. I'm looking Yoshino might have totally gotten tired of her like, and it would be especially because of them or like having to live on for like such a long time that I'm not like they might have through living for such a long time like they might have eventually became so extremely wealthy as well. Especially when the same version. So like this whole life of wealth and basically at the same time like basically the life of like selfie like living in the shadows like basically without making any friends like I'm thinking that would be like along the lines of like a life that basically this bounce might have lived for such a long time while staying immortal for them. They might have lived for such long years, way more than some it's definitely different. They might have lived the very exact same life that I was doing. Yoshino eventually might have totally gotten tired with it. It's definitely was very much. Like I was like recently they might have totally moved to this exact city where like the city where like Ichigo lives like really they might have recently just like casually decided to like or maybe due to like some business reasons like Jin might have decided to like move to the city and but when them move to the city might have happened coincidentally around like the same time when like Kurahara might have been formed by Yorichi that basically the from the society that the Kogigyo has been taken stolen by Aizen and Aizen has left for like the uh, and Aizen has left for like the world of follow secondly when so like at that point itself I'm possible like during that time itself coincidentally like Urahara might have sent like the sent like the presence of like bound nearby as well and at the same time it's definitely with him like so like Urahara might have only found this bound and like the precise bound that Urahara might have found first like the precise and only bound that Urahara might have found might have been at that point might have been precisely Yoshino this woman Yoshino it's definitely with him so Urahara might have only found her and I was like Urahara might have seen Yoshino as like an opportunity to like step for him to like stealthily train Ichigo. It's definitely one of the impression. So Urahara might have straight away been able to like figure that might have been able to figure out that this bounce no doesn't mean such a huge threat or anything. And that like they are few in numbers like Urahara with like exceptional abilities. Like Urahara would be having that exceptional abilities and skills and brilliance with which like Urahara might have certainly been able to like tell that number of like bounds in this in Urahara city at that point. Like because the world is definitely one of the reasons. So like Urahara might have not seen them as like a threat at that point. With their being like I'm possibly there will be only three bounds right now in this city, and that is religion Udagawa as well as like Yoshino alone, especially when the famous so like I was thinking eventually Yoshino might have only gotten bored of the whole luxurious yet like lonely kind of like a life and Yoshino might have only wanted to like make a lot of friends, meet people and talk to people, do things in life like basically than just sit supposedly in like a wealthy uh, home or like apartment and basically just like always living in like the shadow and hiding away from like people and all that. Like that life, like I'm like Yoshino might have totally gotten tired of it. Like since like Yoshino might have totally been living that life, with like the other bound like Udagawa as well as like Jin for like the past like great number of years, like not just 100, but like I was living maybe for 300 or 400 or 500 years, like uh, they might have since like they were born, like they were lived so like that much many years uh, that very same exact life that like Yoshino might have got inspired. So like I was becoming Urahara might have only approached Yoshino and try to like bribe Yoshino. Initially like I was really like what Urahara might have done might have been like Urahara might have tried to like maybe bribe or Yoshino with like something in exchange for like helping Urahara out. So like at that point like for Yoshino it might have been so such like a huge thing for like Yoshino at that point that basically like she gets to that like and Yoshino at that point might have only felt alive. Like even though Yoshino like immortal, even though bounds are like in a way like kind of immortal, like it might be at that point after like great number of years like that Yoshino might have actually felt alive. It's definitely one of the mention that she has something to do in her life, like basically and she can meet people and basically along this line do things and basically that might be like along the line that Yoshino might have felt right. So like the whole Yoshino's fight against like Asuko might have been definitely Urahara's like according to like stealthy or was like Urahara like Yoshino giving that as stealthy training to like Ichigo might have been what like Yoshino's fight against like Ichigo might have been instantly memorable. So like also, Yoshino basically seeming like trying to like take human souls like earlier, like Zoro even running into that, like basically all that might have ended up in the Yoshino totally playing her part according to like the fake act by that was like sold for Yoshino to do according to like Urahara Tono. It's definitely my personal impression. So like Yoshino might have not taken the life of like that human and that human as well that basically fell unconscious into the floor. I think that when Yorich had initially found Yoshino, that human as well might have been only putting on a fake act according to like Urahara's plan. That never been penetrated. So that might have been what might have happened. And Yoshino might have even been Yoshino might have been only extremely tired with her life that like Yoshino might have been like even might have wanted to like end like the whole immortality thing look like take human growth and everything is definitely my water pressure. So this might be the reason for like right now as like basically Jin even asked like Yoshino right now for like Jin even telling Yoshino that like if you like that's like Yoshino needs to eat if she needs to like stay strong like basically this dialogue from Jin to like Yoshino specifically because of like Yoshino not having taken any human soul for a long time because like Yoshino might have gotten tired of like the immortal life, especially my own membership of like the boring immortal life, especially when so right now like Yoshino after a great number of years for like the first time in her life might have been having like might have felt that she's like actually alive and she's like living she's like she has a life would be like after a great number of years right now Yoshino is living and this so definitely like helping for her out and basically doing all these things like basically this might have been what like Kodagawa on seeing like might have feel like disappointed in like right now like Kodagawa saying that and Kodagawa would be most likely like kind of like the butler playing like kind of like the butler role definitely remember the name person in like Jin's like home like he would be like the butler it's definitely Michael's remember so like him being disappointed in like it's dialogue that can be kind of like a disappointed in like those, recent actions, like basically, especially even with really talking about like basically attracting attention and by like basically through like current current fight against like Ichigo and all that, like basically attracting attention and all that. Like basically, that would be like only strictly and strongly against like the whole rule of like the bounds that might have been passed down over generation of bounds, especially with the generation that basically because like a lot of bounds might have strongly died in like the past and like them dying might have been even while bounds have like the power of like immortality for them to like still die in this only it might have been only those exact bounds that might have uh, decided to become bright lights that stepped away from darkness and decided to like become bright lights like and attracted attention like it might have been those exact bombs that might have died in like the past so like since then like there might have been like strict rule that might have been passed uh, uh, that might have been passed down over generation through like the bound family that basically to like always stay in like the shadows in like the darkness and basically to never be a bright light to never attract the attention. So definitely my frame because this would be like the reason for like both Udagawa as well as like Jin not being okay with like Yoshino's like recent actions, especially my personal made the professional fighter. So was like the film on the Korean production right now was like Jin as well as like Odagawa like being totally not okay with like notion of the recent actions of like attracting attention and all that. Into what they were totally also not okay with like so like I was going like maybe like Odagawa might be like extremely skilled at like getting information and collecting information. So like maybe like Odagawa might have even by now might have only figured out like what Yoshino is doing that basically about like maybe about like Yoshino totally stealthily trying to like work for like Orahara and all that like maybe so like my personal impression is that maybe like since like Yoshino might have been showing this like behavior for like a while just to like basically she's not being okay with like living in like the shadow life like basically that's definitely like I was pretty like even since back then like Jin might have only ordered like Kodagawa as like the but not to like basically always strictly follow like strictly follow like Yoshino wherever she goes. So like I'm thinking like maybe she might have found out that basically that like Yoshino like actually doing work and basically and basically working for this like mysterious person which will be like Ferrara and all that. It's definitely might have been reimbursed. So like definitely like Uragawa might have reported about that to like Finn and like them most might be like actually totally even Jin as well will be like totally thoroughly disappointed with that Yoshino right now. It's definitely going for him. So like I'm looking as like a retaliation I'm just looking as to like how Kodagawa as well as Jin would be like reacting to like the current situation. I'm also going like both Kodagawa as well as like Jin right now preferring like without really at all like them deciding to like take the life of like attack and takes the life of that Ichigo and Kuro as well as like Takara. It's like the scenario that I'm looking so like that in that so that like basically so that basically for Yoshino will be having like absolutely no others to go. And so that like they will be totally expecting that way like Yoshino to like return back to their lecture building and stay there in like the shadows and continue living in like the shadows. So like in order to like make that happen now those most likely Onagawa as well as Jin like leaving like the luxurious cozy like building and I'm also like still them maintaining that absolute while maintaining that absolute self like them trying to like attack Ichigo and Kuro. First, just like the scenario that I was doing, then steadily trying to like attack Ichigo and Kuro and basically to take the life of Ichigo and Kuro is like the scenario that I'm considering. And I was bringing most likely for like and from this point on I'm considering like most likely for like Yoshino to not be able to like work for Urahara and like to contribute into like Ichigo's training at all, like the scenario that I'm considering. But like yet like I'm considering like the people like Jin as well as like Uragawa who would have like absolutely would be have absolutely no connection at all to like the training to Ichigo that Urahara might have given Yoshino. Them eventually ending up like accidentally ending up playing that absolute role in like Ichigo's like absolute training is like the scenario that I was thinking. But like eventual scenario that I was thinking is for like Uragawa as well as like Jin trying to like take Ichigo and Crow's life and through that for fighting. And yet that there would be that fight episode of me happen to be happening in like that like alleyway like area. And I was thinking like most likely like to maintain that as the stealth number to bring like most likely Uragawa would be luring like Ichigo and Crow most likely towards this like stealthy towards the like dark alleyway like area eventually and there would be with that after stealth would be like how they will be trying to like execute like the wipe out of like Ichigo and Crow but like I'm thinking that fight is to such a fight to like eventually happen and that fight to like eventually end up being like totally useful to like it went through as for like their training. But like I'm wondering like it would be in that fight that I'm wondering like maybe not just Ichigo but like maybe Ichigo had for him and maybe Ishida as well. Like they really getting that full power upgrade like that happening like Ichigo being able to like bring out finally being able to like get access to like bank powers like all that happening possibly through that fight is also like the initial was scenario that I'm wondering and I'm supposed to bring so like that scenario that I'm maybe for like it's not just being like Unagawa still as well as Yoshino alone that will be present in that few like luxurious building. Like I was going there possibly existing like a few other more bombs as well. So though like the other kind of like possibility as well that I'm also saying. Maybe like kind of like a remote possibility that I'm using, but like not much like maybe one or two more bombs and maybe living in that very same building and it will be like there will be like family and all that. So like it will be only Yoshino alone that will be having this like a difference of opinion and wants to like only live a normal life, especially with Raymond. But like all the remaining bombs in that building would be like living with them would be having the very same very same mindset as like Jin as well as like Uragawa, especially with Raymond. So like all of them basically eventually like having a fight against like Ichigo and Kuro. And it will be in that fight that I was referring like the uh, Ichigo and Kuro will be like Kuro will be getting his like be able to like once again use his like matter powers in like the world as well as like Chad and others. Like Ichigo and Kuro like only getting their power upgrade as well. And Ishida getting his power back. Like all that I was referring is happening during that fight, especially my good doesn't even the scenario that I was referring. I was referring. Oh, so like the main one, Korean impression right now, like Hoshino right now being in like an imprison like state in that huge building. Like I'm also bring like definitely for like the initial scenario that I'm sitting out this definitely for like Odagawa's less than as well as maybe if there are like more than one or more like bounce as well other than Odagawa Jin and Hoshino present in that building. Like I'm also like them more like only during it went through to like eventually a dark alleyway like place and like the fight happening and I was like eventually by the time like it was struggling their way to like eventually finally being able to like overcome and defeat all these bombs and by the time like it went through with it suddenly defeating strong would be when precisely correcting like would be when bring by then like like about breaking out of the like in person like state in that huge building and like sports like basically showing up so that first alleyway like location is like the eventual scenario that I was bring and there like sports right then showing up and like basically at that point I was like sports getting her moment I was telling her dialogue to like them about like and I was like I was at that point was telling like the defeated like Unagawa Jin and Jin that basically like basically living as like an immortal for like living as like an immortal for like all the time while like not living life like basically along this line terms of different like of like a dialogue that like hope to not to tell them that basically it's like living an immortal life while you don't feel alive is not worth it in the along the lines like to bring like fortune to tell them and like that like she'd rather live a normal life like any other human without like immortality. To bring her to like with like that absolute freedom. To bring like her saying something and such a line something along such lines of like a dialogue so the badly defeated like Jin as well as like Unagawa. It's like the scenario that I was bringing. Then I was like Jin as well as Unagawa. deciding to like leave that city and like them leaving that city while like I'm considering like portion of staying in that city of like where Ichigo would be. And I was really like that bond to be formed between like Fortuno and Ichigo from that point on. It's like the scenario that I was doing. And Fortuno was doing like from that point on, like finally getting her freedom and basically Fortuno from that point on, like taking any more human souls, even though Hoshino will be having that uh, would be able to like live as like an immortal if she wants like still like Hoshino taking the decision at that point to like not live as like an immortal but like to like live and eventually taste and like eventually die this way exactly like any other human like along this line would be that absolute declaration that like Coachino and decision that like Coachino would be like making in front of like Ichigo and Pro. And from that point on, like I was like Coachino being like a friend of like Ichigo and Pro. And I was from that point on, like Coachino having like once a while character appearance like Don Kennedy, like I was like Coachino as well, like kind of like ending up being like a character that will be having like in terms of like appearance into like it's going to like I was wondering like the frequency I was wondering like to be like similar to that of like non canody like that way like being a cap uh being such millennium being such a cap like same scenario that I was wondering. Yes, like I was like also not having any role when like eventually once like if you went through would be like eventually traveling into like the world of follows to like basically eventually bring down like Ace and like at that point definitely Yoshino won't be like traveling around with like Shivanto, even though Yoshino would be like absolutely good friends with like Shivanto. That's definitely I'm just thinking Yoshino to like not going not to be going along with like Shivanto while we and so we heading off to like the waterfall to bring down Ace and it's like it's a scenario that I'm looking with. And definitely also my was impression by Jin saying like about like Yoshino losing strength if he doesn't eat like basically definitely like there only like what like Jin would be only meaning by would be that like for losing of strength when it comes to like the level of mortality kind of like a state of definitely not going to be any research. Yeah. So like other than that like I was like even if like Yoshino doesn't take any human source, takes any human source like still even if the Yoshino doesn't do that like I was like as like about still Yoshino would still be able to like live the life of like lifespan of like a normal human, of like an average normal human is like the microperitory without losing any health or like any issues. It's like microperitory and function. So it's definitely microperitory and function right now that I'm sitting on to basically that like basically right now it's like if you go in Rukia about like the timing of like Rukia showing up to like this exact city like of Ichigo where like the bouncer during like this exact time like basically Rukia casually saying like basically like the first time she even heard of bouncer precisely when while just now Ichigo was like fighting against like Oshino basically that would be totally once again a lie by the side of like Rukia definitely was a revelation like Rukia would have totally like for her might not only like phone Rukia and precisely told Rukia to like precisely might have definitely been like for her that might have phoned Rukia and told Rukia to like show up and might have been precisely for her that might have already back then itself like told Rukia about like the bound strategy to basically train Ichigo and to make Ichigo bring out the like that type of in like the human Ichigo to be able to like bring out the like in like the human world definitely able to remember so like while Ichigo was like fighting off against like Yoshino, like at that point, like not just Yoshino, but like Rukia as well, by showing up precisely at that point, were like combined in a combined manner, were like together trying to like train Ichigo to be for Ichigo to be able to like bring out just like Bangai power when like and it might have been precisely like Budagawa that might have destroyed all their plans by like infiltrating into that exact battle. Is the would be what might have exactly happened if that leave my person to interesting. Okay, so like the Liverpool with Real Preston right now, with like a Ranger right now going up to like Itigo's home and basically like Itigo right now like basically telling to like talking about like with like the seriousness like Itigo as like it was talking about like there are these sounds like Ranger straight away yawning like I'm the one that is so definitely due to like Renji as well totally being part of like the bigger training plan of like Sakura. So definitely my preparation like it wouldn't just be like okay alone that would be knowing about like the bound Yoshino's like secret stealthy training of Legacy Go. and it would just be like Rukia alone that would be part of it. But Renji as well would be like totally knowing about this. If might have told Renji and Renji as well would be totally part of it. That's definitely my favorite, and that would be like the reason as well. Like Renji as well would be totally Renji as well around this time, like basically having showed up like even before Rukia still like after like he went through have came from like the after like saving Rukia like basically after like Ichigo Pro had seen back to like the human world from like the from like the soul society. After that, like without much great delay, like Renji even showing up to like the human world and even staying at like Urahara place like basically it would be all due to like precisely Urahara's like intent and basically like Renji totally helping Urahara out. It was definitely my personal memory. So like this entire thing like right now even with like the situation with like the bomb, everything like basically exactly like Rukia as well like Renji as well will be like totally stealthily will be trying to like help Ichigo and through like so this technique Ichigo and through and will be like step way trying to like get Ichigo and through to like get a whole lot stronger. It's definitely my favorite impression. It is like definitely my favorite impression right now as for like during school break like for Ichigo right now being all by himself like basically while like Rukia is like talking to Horihime and like Ishida is also like staying away from Ichigo and is like all by himself like taking while Chad as well is basically talking to other students. Like basically the like Ichigo all of a sudden like being all by himself. And even like the loneliness of like Ichigo. It's like right now definitely Ichigo is the right now feeling. And that will be the reason for like Ichigo right now saying like feeling weird. Like Ichigo would be right now totally feeling weird while he will be like and that will be the reason for him even saying that basically it seems like Soul Society didn't exist at all really because of all that the friends of Ichigo that basically had shared like all this like adventures with like Ichigo until this like until recently like even though like and everything and until recently like all of them right now like all of a sudden like basically acting indifferently and staying away from Ichigo with like Ichigo feeling lonely like basically Ichigo this would be like the first reason for like Ichigo even saying that like it seems like the social society didn't exist at all is the name of the primitive but like I'm preferring the precise reason for like my personal is that like right now like chat or Hime Rukia as well as Kishida would be like maybe like struggling and doing their absolute best to like stay as far away from Ichigo on purpose. It's definitely my personal reason because like I'm maybe right now like the whole training of like Urahara would be specifically for like Ichigo like the training like I'm like definitely the training like that whole Ichigo fight against like Yoshino might have been definitely Purahara training and I was like according to like Purahara's plan as well as like Rukia's plan as well as like and I was like even sad for him as well as like he should as well might have been well aware of like this like uh fake of this like the whole found strategy by Urara to like how Ichigo be able to like once again access to like Bankai power. It might have been like Ichigo alone that might have not been aware of it, especially my boundary temperature. But like I was like precisely because of and like right now with like that plan going wrong, especially because like my boundary temperature like what Urahara might have hoped for would be like for things to like go smoothly and like basically with like Rukia showing up during like Ichigo's fight against like the theory of a monster of like the bound like in that fight like for Ichigo to be able to like finally be able to like once again access to like Bankai Pulse in like the human world might have been what like for Hara and everyone might have only expected but like I'm wondering that's what might have only destroyed their entire plan might have been like obviously Madagama's like infiltration into like that battle and stopping and taking away of like Hoshiro. It's definitely of course, it's definitely one of the emergency. Like right now, with like the current situation being like would be like kind of like feeling like an awkward situation for like Chad for him as well as Kishida as well as Rukia right now with like them and like them being not be able to like be transparent and straightforward towards like their best friend Ichigo with like them wanting that stealthy train because like the stealthy train plan like backfired in between like considering that might have been what might have happened. So like until like the stealthy training of Ichigo plan into like until like Ichigo is able to like once again use the bank for like that becomes a success, like they will have like the burden or like the task to like maintain their to basically keep up like their fake act in front of you as like they are worried for like the whole bound situation. But it's definitely my brother impression. So like this would be the precise reason for like and I'm like so like all of them would be like struggling to like maintain a straight face while in like the presence of Ichigo, while Ichigo like basically like seriously that would be like the only person who would be like seriously worried for like the situation with like the bound. It's definitely my brother impression. So the author would be marked like for Haras like a Celtic plant like drainage those that name of the evolution. So like evolution includes the Celtic of situation that they would all be like struggling to keep up like the fake act in front of Ichigo and to base and they would select only but they might be also struggling to like maintain a straight face while talking to Ichigo. So, and they will be in that absolute fear of like the possibility of like basically Ichigo basically finding them suspicious to like the point that basically Ichigo was figuring out about like the stealthy training and all that. Like they might have like chat for him as well as like Ishida and they would be having that fear and that would be like the sole reason for like them all right now keeping that distance, ensuring to like stay away from Ichigo would be solely due to that fear within them, especially my personal impression. And poor Ichigo without realizing this would be like the best reason for like Ichigo only finding it extremely awkward and weird and even right now saying that basically it seems like the soul created nexus that out. It's definitely my wondering, especially with like Rukia after like returning like while on seeing Rukia like Ichigo might have been so extremely excited and happy and Ichigo might have been looking forward to like basically being able to like spend a lot of time with like Rukia as they back before like uh, Rukia was like taken by possibly taken by and Ringy back when she was possibly taken and captured and taken to like the soul society like until then that whole chemistry that like Ichigo had and like Ichigo had with like Rukia like right now definitely Ichigo would be missing that like and all that time that he spent with like Rukia that would be what like Ichigo is missing like the most right now. It's definitely my personal average. So like Ichigo deep down would be extremely kind of like disturbed and disappointed, which like he would be like totally like really trying to like not show in front of like the others would be what like the situation for like you are right now is definitely member three emergent. Yes, so like definitely member three emergent right now that of like they're in right now like that all they're in right now like fencing about like definitely and there would be totally waiting for like the bound to be precisely Yoshino, but like definitely my personal impression is that like the bound right now that would be uh that is going to have right now running off to like basically fine would be definitely a person in that bound would be definitely instead of Yoshino it would definitely be Badagawa like the scenario that right now possibly it would be just like Badagawa by himself like Jin and possibly that Jin making the entrance like I'm possibly not happening right now. It would be like later on as like my personal impression. But like as for right now, if the next time like the bound would be just another bound will be showing up like eventually. That would be like the point when I was like it would be Jin that would be showing up. But right as for right now, I'm looking like it would be definitely Badagawa. It's definitely one of the and even right now I'm looking like even pro like the fight like it's going to not being able to like defeat Badagawa is like the scenario that I was looking and also like I was looking like the leader as well as like the entirety of like a duo and crew would be totally shocked because like they would always like totally expecting for like Yoshino, but like they would be totally running into and finding like Vadagawa instead. And at that point, I was pretty like all of them being kind of like shocked, but like maybe I was pretty like initially uh, like sad and the maybe thinking along the lines of like maybe like this will be also a part of like or Hara's plan, but like I was like as like that fight uh begins like I was like as that fight progressed between like Vadagawa and Ichigo like I was like look me it will be far too obvious to like chat okay man and like chat and okay man and like okay that basically like that basically is like Vadagawa is not part of like Ohara's plan. So definitely because it would be in such an extremely dangerous plan in like a villainistic plan of that time possibly like Vadagawa would be fighting off against Ichigo and possibly maybe like Vadagawa even in between trying to like even attack and harm and like for him and Chad as well is also like a fantasy as well is also like a possible attempt of revenge. It could be totally not at all according to their plan and everything. It's also like filling the scenario. that I'm totally playing right now and very very interested. And right now with like Satsuki being like totally concerned and worried for like what can I definitely my first impression is that like as this fight would be progressing, I'm considering like Satsuki like totally with like her being worried for like or and on top of that like it's like Satsuki like from like a while back like Satsuki having like basically gained like spiritual powers like as well like I'm considering like Satsuki as well I'm considering like by herself would be able to like strength maybe like since like each of like it was close like different like special powers are like unique like I was just like in the case of Satsuki might have like that exceptional tracking ability that kind of like it will be kind of like featured as powers so that never was like I'm considering like maybe Satsuki right now I'm considering maybe Satsuki as well right now running off and I'm considering like maybe Ishida would be only seeing that so like Satsuki running off so like I'm considering Satsuki right now it's like Ishida would give like send like the maybe able to like right now send like the whole as like and I was like it would be like as sort of like a range at the and I was like definitely like while I'm considering Satsuki not being able to like send like the found along the along that extreme levels of a range of that of like the mode soul like learn like I'm considering still Tatsuki I'm considering like not only right now in a concerned manner but wait for him but Tatsuki I'm considering right now running off towards like that direction where like Ichigo and crew had ran off to and as like Tatsuki will be the confused manner running through that direction I'm considering like eventually Tatsuki possibly being able to like send like the presence of like bound of like the bounded like the scenario that I was doing. Satsuki have like some weird preference at that different. So like I was doing Satsuki following that like that process that she will give present at that point and Satsuki like not following that like Satsuki eventually ending up into like the middle of like the passage between like Ichigo and Wadagawa is like the scenario that I was doing. At that point, I was like in that battle, like I was like maybe like Wadagawa, kind of like overpowering Ichigo, and like I was different for clear scenario where like Wadagawa would be then like attacking or him and like or like about to attack or him. So like at that point, I was like Sasuke totally jumping in and basically trying to like protect or with her life, and I was that attack seriously like and badly injuring Tatsuki is like also like a scenario that I'm also bringing that like at that point all of them like and by then like Ichigo chat as well as like Okime would be like kind of like already would have like through that battle would be like already kind of be it's like injured and kind of like weak is the scenario that I was thinking and at that point I was thinking like Wadagawa totally thinking of like a strategy to like basically and basically Wadagawa at that point like basically abducting Satsuki and basically heading off. It's like the scenario that I was referring that is like also kind of like a scenario that I'm looking like Vadagawa maybe like to get Ichigo to like show off exactly where like Vadagawa would be wanting like maybe like Vadagawa uh like maybe for like another attack where like I'm personally like Vadagawa at that point might be not maybe and ending up not being able to like wipe out like so the Vadagawa want to like exterminate them like the life of Ichigo and crew like which only what Vadagawa was trying to do and so still Vadagawa maybe not being able to do that. So like I was thinking Vadagawa through that fight maybe realizing that he would also need like Jin help as well to like wipe out like the entire of Ichigo and crew. So like maybe Vadagawa at that point like deciding to like abduct Tatsuki and his lead Vadagawa need it at that point is like the also like the bottom scenario that I was doing. So like at that point, I was very appreciative that like with like Tatsuki eventually would be like getting affected by Wadagawa and like by threatening to take the life of Tatsuki and in that way like Wadagawa totally during Ichigo and crew to like an extremely dark alleyway like area in like the middle of the night and there but the thing eventually would be like later on would be when like the whole fights between like Jin and Ichigo would be happening is like the scenario that I'm doing and that point like there will be like Jin and Wadagawa maybe like one or two another pound worth of like is going through. That would be like the fight that would be happening. So at that point, like even though like that current intent would be like most likely by Ichigo for Ahara as well as like Ichigo's friends like basically have Ichigo get back to the like bad guy powers and for Ichigo to like get stronger. Still to my impressions that like initially spiraling out into such a manner that like through that fight, like I'm including the skill like it goes that will be getting the power upgrade or like getting being able to like get back being able to like use this like bank powers and in like the human world, but like I'm looking like uh, uh, definitely that final showdown fight like definitely Ishida as well would definitely be present. Ishida so that like at that point totally contrary to their expectations like Ishida chat as well as for him simultaneously along with Ichigo getting the power upgrade as well. And in the case of Ishida getting back his power is like the scenario. And maybe like when Ishida gets back his power, like it will be even stronger than before. So also like the scenario that I'm so like that way the training being complete even though things would be totally not going according to like for her plan, like still like things ending up with like that perfect result with like if you go and through by the time they will be defeating like Jin and Wanagawa, like they would have reached that any level 6 point was like the scenario in the scenario that I'm and with that like that it would be like their training would be like complete at that point. Like that happening in such a manner is like the scenario that I'm okay, so like the flavor of the reimbursement right now with like Hanataro actually showing up to like it was city like I was like it was especially due to like either Rukia like after like the whole so after things not going according to their plan might have in the league what might have happened during like the Hoshino versus like Ichigo fight with like the fight being interrupted and stopped by basically and Oshino being taken by specifically Wadagawa. Like, so like I'm thinking like at that point like Rukia might have totally phoned Urahara and might have told Urahara about like situation. So like Urahara might have totally like expected like the possibility of like the other bounds like possibly like maybe not okay with like what like so like I was going maybe like Urahara might have totally expected like an actual bounce attack rather than a training still the training of Ichigo like an actual bounce attack happening to like Ichigo improve. Kurahara might not only maybe escape in such a scenario. That's like only one possibility that I'm considering. The other possibility is like the more likely possibility that I'm considering. That would be most likely after like Hoshino was like in person like at that point like Hoshino herself might not only phone Kurahara and might not told Kurahara and Hoshino things like Hoshino would be knowing her knowing Jin as well as like Wadagawa how they are like far too well like I'm considering well, Hoshino might have had that feeling that definitely of like a serious possibility of like basically uh, of like Badagawa and Jin trying to like eliminate it to go and home. So like it might have been Hoshino herself, even while being in that emotional state, might have straight away phoned for Hara and warned it for Hara of like the incoming danger for like it's going through. So like emergency races straight away like for Hara. And like might have taken like the countermeasure and like basically Hanataro right now being in like Ichigo city would be might be like maybe like the only countermeasure that Ronaldo might have taken, or like maybe one of like the countermeasure that Ronaldo might have taken. It's definitely one of the remedies. So like I'm considering like definitely with like the whole healing skills of Anataro like Ronaldo might not only definitely felt that like, it would be totally coming handy for like it's going through but like they would be totally having like it was like Urhara that went over the phone call of like Hoshino like Urhara might be like far too and Hoshino might have even told like Urhara that basically totally contrary to like me like basically that like Jin as well as like Wadagawa are like a whole lot stronger than Hoshino like that's definitely one of the reason Hoshino might have told that like Urhara so it's essentially because of that like Urhara might have quickly phoned to like the society and might also short than other like to help each one grow out. Might have been like the preparation for Canada right now in like being present in like university right now. It's definitely my perception. Okay, so like definitely my perception right now with like the snake Frida, like Rio or like Badagawa, like basically saying that anything Rio imagines turns into like snake. Basically, even then, like I'm considering like definitely the room is still that limitation that I'm considering like it will be especially with like right now like a Rio turning like the strap that was like holding Sarulo like into like a snake. Like I'm considering like still my observation that like the limitation of the rule is still limitation to that imagination and that would be that like uh Rio or like Udagawa like basically he won't be able to like turn any living thing into a snake, especially when the times it will be like non-living things alone that I'm also connecting. that he would be able to like turn into a snake, even with his like imagination. It's definitely member of the ambition. There would be that limitation for like his power. It's like definitely member of the ambition. It's sort of definitely member of the ambition right now with like Rio's like exceptional powers of like snake powers like not to like defeat Rio like like the biggest weakness would be like of like to bring down Rio and like that of that is Frida the snake like it's definitely never win that even though Rio being able to like using his like imagination being able to turn like it should be only non-living things into like any number of like non-living things into like snake like basically that power of like rearming would only be working as long as like the snake Frida would be like alive. It's certainly my position. The snake Frida that's like always like right beside like Rio would be precisely due to the snake Frida being that absolute weakness. It's definitely my position. So like it's like the snake Frida is like taken the life of then like Rio won't be able to like create any more snakes even with like imagination. It's definitely my position. So this would be like I'm something like how that this would be like a Rio's weakness to definitely one with Real Madrid, and this would be how that Rio can be that defeated. It's also definitely my Real Madrid. Okay, so like definitely my Real Madrid right now as for like Rio right now, recognizing his rise, even saying that this is interesting that the thing like that he is running to UPR like basically. It might my Real Madrid for like two possibilities. Either it would be like the possibility that basically him of like him having recognized like Ishida as like a quincy. So either it would be like the quincy factor that would be like emphasis is like right now with like almost like the almost like the entirety of like the quincy having wiped off or like I think like Ishida's like the only last surviving quincy what I'm saying like I'm just so like anyway that would be the reason for they would like the immortal bounce might have had like certainly might have had like maybe like had like a past history with like the Quincy definitely my good favorite. So like I'm thinking that might be the reason for like him Rio's dialogue right now and what Rio might have recognized in Ishida might have been like the fact that like Ishida is like a Quincy. It's only like one positive that I'm considering and but like I'm leaning more to like the other positive that like by instead of grandpa's life was taken by I think like soul resource like from its soul society. Might have the impressions that like maybe instead of father's life might have been taken by this very same exact Rio. Might have been what might have happened, especially my good memories. So like he might have like maybe while Ishida might have not been present in his home, like maybe while Ishida might have gone to school, like maybe at that point might have been when he might have like basically like this like very same Rio in like the past maybe might have like attack like attack like or like I was going somewhere like maybe where like Ishida's like father had gone to work like maybe it might have been there that like the Rio might have been present and like there like one day Rio might have taken the life of like Ishida's father. So like right before him taking the life of like Ishida's father, like Ishida might have only begged him to like spare him and he might have shown a photo of like his son, like Ishida. So like that he has a son that will be to spare him. So basically maybe that might have been that photo of like Ishida that he might have of a child Ishida that he might have seen back then. Like maybe even after all these years, like he might have been able to like recognize Ishida from that his memories of that photo from that past. It's definitely my positive image. So like this might have been how like he might have what like Rio might have right now recognized him if that is like the other possibility that I'm looking to bring in a different answer. Okay, so like the name of the question right now as for like Rio right now being able to like recognize like if that as like a Quincy as being like a Quincy like and also like, maybe it might be due to like him having like totally ran into Rio in the Christian past, like possibly having ran into 20 before. It's definitely my was very interesting. So like I'm thinking it might have been associated with like him having like certainly because of this reason, like the spiritual pressure of Quincy is will be like different, and so like Rio will be able to like recognize it as like a Quincy. Definitely my was mentioned, but like but like him right now revealing that of like him wondering what like Quincy so is like basically my personal impression is that maybe still I'm considering like the possibility of like maybe instead of father possibly having died by the hands of like Jin and not Rio. It's like the possibility that I'm considering. Maybe like Rio might have been present while like Jin might have taken the life of like Ishida's father. It's also like a maybe like a possibility that I'm considering. One of the many possibilities that I'm considering. Maybe like at that point, like Ishida's father might have only begged for his life and like back to like Jin to like spare him and might have even shown like the photo of like Ishida as well. Maybe that is also that might have been also something that might have happened for like that's also like a possibility that I'm referring. Yet like I'm referring so like I'm referring, like it might have been Jin that might have taken the life of like Ishida's father. It's also like the possibility that I'm referring and my brain question right now. It is like definitely a tutorial mentioned right now, like Yoshino right now running away from her like in present state in and escaping from her home building like and looking and like the like Jin totally seeing that like and like the scenario to be like Yoshino right now would be like friendly would be genuinely a kind-hearted person deep down and Yoshino would be like desperately escaping to like ways to help Ichigo and throw out safely because like Yoshino was only expecting for like Rio to like definitely go Hoshino might be fearing like the possibility of like since like Rio as well as Jin was like totally cross with like Hoshino basically like most likely having like help Kurahara out and with like it was training and everything so like that might have been what might have happened so like with like Jin as well as like Rio being cross and disappointed with like that but something like maybe like Hoshino might be only afraid, not afraid, but like genuinely concerned and worried for like Ichiban through safety. So like I'm like possessing because of that, like I'm like Hoshino right now, because like her running away, like I'm like it wouldn't just be like her just casually escaping her presence just to be free, but like I'm like it would be her genuinely due to her genuine worry for like the safety of Ichiban through like her trying to like help Ichiban through out. So like by now she would be not expecting that maybe for like for like for either Jin or like the other guy like Rio to be like attacking Ichiban Kuro. So like I'm going to help Ichiban Kuro as like she would be like escaping from that building. It's definitely remember the name. So like I'm going the scenario to be like basically like Ichiban Kuro this time as well. I'm something like Ichiban Kuro suddenly being defeated by that person like by Rio is like the scenario that I'm trying. So like at that point, I'm also related to the her showing up that would be like changing like the tide of like the battle. It's like the scenario that I'm trying. So that's the situation will be defeated. I'm also like her to like basically show up and basically or like I'm particularly maybe like with like him recognizing Ishida as like with Rio recognizing Ishida as like a twin chamber to bring like without much delay itself like him revealing Ishida asking him how he knows that Ishida is like a twin and I'm also bring like to Ishida I'm also bring like him to actually speak as like how he knows Ishida is like a twin and him having like fought a twin before like maybe that would be precisely Ishida's father. So like think basically revealing about like how Ishida's father had died, like and how his like superior like Jin was like the one that had basically taken the life of like Ishida's father. Along with like maybe like that as well, possibly maybe like bringing out like the powers within Ishida is also like a kind of like a remote possibility that I'm considering. Like similar to like how like Ishida's anger for like towards like Mayuri for like uh, taking the life of like instead of like grandpa like like uh, that bringing out instead of like that increasing instead of powers and all that like basically maybe like like since like because of like the that similarity happening maybe like that will like not happen it's also like about that so like anywhere regardless like definitely eventually once like Hoshino will be showing up like that would be like that relief of like a situation for like is going to when Hoshino and bring definitely like show up and help the team is going to out and right and Hoshino trying to like stop Rio like the scenario that ended with right so that like being like a great help for you and Rose like the scenario that ended with but like while Ichigo and Rose at that point would be like slowly be able to like starting to like be able to like to actually think at all at like would be slowly starting to be able to like do fight back, slowly starting to even be able to like fight back in that fight. Like at that point, the conversation, Jin totally showing up and Jin totally ending all that for like Zu and Pro. And Jin totally thoroughly defeating all of them and Jin that one showing up and I'm considering that at that point would be when precisely I'm considering Tatsuki as well would be finally Tatsuki that and that time would be like frantically searching all throughout like that entire area trying to like find for him but like I'm considering like it will be after like the scenario that I'm considering is like it would be most likely after like Jin would be like chasing after like Jin would be like chasing after like Hoshino and would be making it to that location where like the whole fight would be taking place between Ichiban and like Rio. Like at that point would be like finally when like Jin would be showing up like until Jin would be showing up like I was like that Hoshino not only trying to like fighting alongside Ichiban against like Rio's like the scenario that I was talking but like once Jin would be showing up like Jin totally ending all that hot stuff like it went through, thoroughly defeating it went through, and that at that point, after like Jin would be showing up, would be when precisely finally Tatsuki would be able to like make it to like and find that locations like the scenario that I was looking. So like interestingly, as like Tatsuki would be showing up, I was like uh most likely for him affecting like Jin most likely affecting Tatsuki and leaving along with like Rio who would be at that point like only affecting like forcefully capturing like Hoshino and like these three would be like leaving at that point like in such a manner like the scenario that I was working for. And like at that point like Ichigo and Crow won't be badly and thoroughly defeated that they won't be able to like do anything at all like the scenario that I was working on the impression. So like my memory impression for like to be like precisely at that point after like precisely Jin would be like affecting like Tatsuki as well as like the scenario to be like Rio like hopefully taking away like Ocean like it will be at that point once they would be leaving that area and Ichiban would be like thoroughly defeated maybe even in like the verge of that like at that point would be when liberating like Hanataro precisely showing up to that location of like the scenario precisely at that moment of like the scenario that I was doing. So like Hanataro straight away like would be like the sole reason for like it went through at that point like being able to like maybe survive is also like an eventual person that numbers is only putting Amazon fail version.